We now move on to Chapter 9, Basic Maneuvers in a Low-Risk Environment. As usual, we have our knowledge objectives. So by the end of Chapter 9, students will be able to describe the sequence of actions necessary to safely make a lane change, describe the sequence of actions and judgments required when approaching and completing left and right turns from and onto one- and two-way streets with single and multiple lanes of travel, describe the procedures and level of risk associated with the various methods of reversing direction of travel, and describe the procedures for safely parking at an angle, perpendicular, parallel, uphill, and downhill. Then we have our attitude objectives. By the end of Chapter 9, students will accept that there must always be adequate time and space to perform an intended maneuver. So let's get started. So we start with changing lanes, which is a basic movement. Changing lanes involves a movement either to the left or to the right. Changing lanes also involves steering actions and generally requires a change in speed. Since you will be changing your vehicle's position on the roadway, you are required to signal in advance to alert other drivers of your intentions. So here are some key concepts to remember regarding lane changes. You need to have an adequate gap. You need to have common courtesy, be able to communicate with other drivers, be driving at an appropriate speed, and you also need to check for several things, such as traffic ahead of you, behind you, to the sides, have full control over your steering, have full control over your speed change, establish your lane position in your new lane, check traffic to both your sides and to your rear again, and then reestablish space around your vehicle. We move on to lane changing and decision making. When preparing to change lanes, the first step should be to ask yourself, is it necessary to change lanes? Or is there a reason for this lane change? You might ask yourself, what are some common reasons why a driver would perform a lane change? Well, the answer to that could be slow-moving vehicles are blocking your path, or the lane could be coming to an end. The destination ahead of you requires a turn from a lane other than the one that your car is currently in, or there could be a pedestrian, animal, or bicycle in your lane. How to safely change lanes. You should check ahead, to the sides, and to the rear of your vehicle for a safe gap in traffic. Then signal your intention to move left or right by using your blinker. Then recheck your blind areas to the rear in the direction of your intended lane change. When conditions are safe, steer into the new lane, adjusting your speed to the flow of traffic. Once you reach the new lane, cancel your turn signal and recheck your vehicle's speed and position. Then we have entering traffic. When you enter traffic from a stopped position, you must yield the right-of-way to vehicles already in the travel lanes. In the city, approaching vehicles should be at least a half block away before you attempt to enter traffic. Search at least 1 block ahead along the center of your intended path of travel. But be sure to remember the time and space method of judging distance. If traffic is traveling at faster speeds, then search a greater distance ahead. Then steer into the nearest travel lane and accelerate smoothly to the speed of traffic. Then we have leaving traffic and parking at a curb. You should plan well in advance when you decide to leave traffic and park at a curb. Positioning your vehicle parallel to and close to the curb requires time to make space judgments and to steer precisely. Signal well in advance and slow down gradually. Tap your brake pedal to flash your brake lights. In heavy, slow-moving traffic, giving the stop hand signal may also be appropriate. Leaving traffic near an intersection. Take special care if you are planning to leave traffic just before or beyond an intersection because other drivers may misinterpret your intentions. If you intend to park before you reach the intersection, alert drivers behind you by tapping your brake pedal rapidly several times before you signal. If you intend to park beyond the intersection, signal at a time that other drivers will understand you are not intending to turn at the intersection. Multiple lane streets. Lanes may be restricted for slow-moving vehicles or other obstructions. It is the responsibility of the driver traveling in the blocked lane to yield to oncoming vehicles as well as vehicles in adjacent lanes. Before changing lanes, ask yourself, will other vehicles either ahead or behind me be making the same moves that I intend to make? Is there anyone in the lane that I wish to enter? Will any adjacent vehicle also attempt to enter the same lane that I intend to move into? And finally, is anyone approaching rapidly from the rear? Then we have common errors. Drivers might neglect to use a turn indicator to signal their intention to change lanes. Drivers might decrease speed before or after steering into a new lane. Drivers might move into the new lane in a position too close to the vehicle ahead of them. The closer a vehicle gets to an object, the less time and space a driver will have if he or she needs to steer around it. Now we move on to turning. Turning into the flow of traffic requires spatial judgment, speed control, and steering skill. Here are some tips for turning smoothly. Consider the type of turn that you are about to make. Then plan your steering maneuver. Then adjust your speed as needed and identify the best path of travel to safely complete your turn. Here are some points to be aware of before you begin to practice turning. First, we're going to talk about speed. When turning from your path onto a perpendicular path, your speed should not exceed 5 to 15 miles per hour. Before you begin any turn, tap your brake pedal to alert drivers behind you, then apply steady pressure to your brakes. Then slow to the appropriate speed before you enter the turn by braking in a straight line. Then maintain a constant speed while you turn, then accelerate gradually as you complete the turn. The sharper the turn, the slower you must travel to maintain control of your vehicle. Then you want to search ahead. Look as far ahead as possible. Then identify a target area and search ahead continuously to spot any threatening objects. As you turn, do not fixate on a specific target or object, and maintain your focus on your intended path of travel. Then adjust your focus in steering. Always look ahead through the turning path that you will be taking. By looking further ahead, drivers will be able to see along the vehicle's pathway to identify any potential obstructions. Then we have the turning radius. If drivers start a left turn too soon, the vehicle will likely cross over the center line of the intersecting street, increasing the risk of a collision. If drivers begin a right turn too soon, the right rear wheel may strike the curb. During turning maneuvers, the rear wheels will always turn tighter than the front wheels. Then we have signaling your intentions. Most states require drivers in urban areas to signal at least 100 feet before turning. It is recommended that you signal as soon as it can be given without causing confusion, generally 150 to 200 feet before the turn. On rural roadways, where vehicles travel at much higher speeds, signal your intention several hundred feet ahead of the turn, but be careful not to signal so early that other drivers will be confused. Then we have entering the proper lane. At some intersections, arrows on the pavement indicate the actions required of drivers in those lanes. You should position your vehicle in the proper lane before you arrive at the intersection. Many multiple lane streets have dedicated left turn lanes at intersections. You can earn a citation for improper lane use or driving in an unsafe manner. Now we have basic turning maneuvers. We'll start with turning right. To make a proper right-hand turn, prepare well in advance, usually 500 feet or one city block. Then signal your intention at least 150 feet in advance. Then reduce your speed. If there is a curb, steer right until the right side of the vehicle is 3 to 5 feet from the curb. Check traffic ahead of you, then to the right, then to the left, and then to the rear. Make sure there are no bicycles, motorcycles, or pedestrians in your path. Then be ready to yield to anyone in the crosswalk. Then smoothly turn the steering wheel clockwise through the turn. Stay in the right lane by focusing ahead as far as possible along your intended path of travel. Then complete the turn by reversing the steering process by unwinding the steering wheel counterclockwise. Then cancel the turn signal if necessary and adjust your speed as appropriate. Make sure there is no bicycles or motorcycles to your right in your blind area. Then we have turning left. To turn left, yield the right of way to other traffic. Then prepare well in advance, usually 500 feet or one city block before you reach the turning point. Signal, and when it's safe to do so, move into the far left lane. On a one-way street, move into the lane nearest the left curb. Then signal for the turn at least 150 feet in advance of the intersection. Then reduce your speed. If you need to apply the brakes, do so in a straight line before turning the steering wheel. Then check traffic ahead of you, to your right, then to your left, and then to your rear. Make sure there are no bicycles, motorcycles, or pedestrians in your path. Then be ready to yield to anybody in the crosswalk. Look through the turn along your intended path of travel. If you are turning from a one-way street into another one-way street, begin your turn when the curb begins to curve. Follow the turning path so that you turn into the lane that corresponds to the lane you exited. When turning onto a one-way street, enter the extreme left travel lane. Then cancel the turn signal if necessary and adjust your speed as appropriate. Then we have reversing direction. Consider the advantages, disadvantages, and the risks involved. Maneuvers you may execute include the following: traveling around the block, 2-point turn, a U-turn, or a 3-point turn. Consider traffic density, speed, visibility, street layout, and local traffic ordinances. Then we have analyzing the risk. Often the best choice when you have to turn around is to drive around the block. Consider that you may have to cross the path of oncoming traffic at an uncontrolled intersection. Choose to separate the risks so you can deal with one event at a time. This can be a simple choice of turning right, continuing clockwise around the block with a series of right turns, then turning left, crossing traffic, and entering your traffic lane at the same time. Or turning left across oncoming traffic, continuing clockwise around the block with a series of right turns, and then turning right to enter traffic going the other direction. Turning left allows you to separate the risks to a greater degree and requires you to turn left across only one lane of traffic. Then we have 2-point turns. 2-point turns involve backing or pulling forward into a driveway or a lightly traveled side street. There are at least 3 types of 2-point turns you can make, each involving progressively higher levels of risk. The first is 2-point turn by backing. This technique involves stopping in your lane, then backing to the right into a driveway or a lightly traveled side street. Check traffic ahead, to your right, then to your left, then behind, and then the blind area to your right. Then tap the brake pedal to alert drivers behind you, and then turn on your right turn signal. Make sure there are no bicycles, motorcycles, or pedestrians in your intended path. And be ready to yield to anybody in the crosswalk. Then stop 3 feet from the curb with the rear bumper of your vehicle just beyond the driveway. Keeping your foot on the brake pedal, shift to reverse and check again for traffic in all directions. When your path is clear, look over your right shoulder and back your vehicle slowly while turning the steering wheel quickly to the right or clockwise. As the rear of the vehicle enters the driveway, turn the steering wheel back to the left or counterclockwise in order to center the vehicle in the driveway. Stop after the front of the vehicle is in the driveway. Keep your foot on the brake pedal, then shift to drive, check for pedestrians and crossing traffic, and enter traffic when it is safe to do so. The advantage of this technique is that you will have full view in both directions as you re-enter traffic. As you back and turn to the right, you also must check the space to the front, since the front of the vehicle will swing out to the left. Then we have the 2-point turnabout by turning left. A somewhat more risky way to turn around is to make a 2-point turnabout by turning into the driveway or alley on the left and then reversing back into the street. So first, you need to check traffic ahead of you, then to your right, then to your left, then behind, and then the blind area to your right. Then select a driveway or alley on the left that you wish to turn into. Then tap the brake pedal to alert drivers behind and turn on your turn signal. Then position your vehicle for a left turn. Check for bicycles and pedestrians in your path, and be ready to yield to anybody in the crosswalk. Turn left into the driveway, staying as close as possible to the right side. Stop with the front wheels straight and the rear of the vehicle clear of the roadway. Keeping your foot on the brake pedal, shift to reverse and turn on your right turn signal. Then check again for traffic in all directions. When your path is clear, look over your right shoulder and back your vehicle onto the roadway. Then steer sharply to the right, keeping your vehicle in the nearest travel lane. When the front wheels are straight, stop and cancel your turn signal. Keeping your foot on the brake pedal, shift to drive, check for pedestrian and crossing traffic, and enter traffic when it's safe to do so. Then we have U-turns. This method of turning around can be done in mid-block or at an intersection. Check your local laws and follow road signs to be sure that U-turns are permitted. So how do you perform a U-turn? First, be sure no other vehicle is following you. Stop as close as possible to the right curb or the edge of the pavement in order to provide maximum space to execute your turn. Then check for traffic to your front and to the rear. Then turn on your left turn signal. Then check a second time for traffic over your left shoulder and then to your rear. Then steer sharply to the left, moving your vehicle slowly until it faces in the opposite direction. When the turn is nearly complete, straighten the wheels, position your vehicle properly in the traffic lane, and adjust your speed as appropriate. The vehicle is vulnerable to oncoming traffic while totally stopped, blocking the traffic lane twice during this maneuver. Then we have the three-point turnabout. This maneuver should only be used during the lightest traffic and when no other option is available. Never attempt this maneuver if you are near a hill or a curve or if your sight distance is limited. So how do you perform a three-point turnabout? First, be sure that there is no rear or oncoming traffic. Then signal right and stop as close as possible to the right edge of the roadway or curb. This turn will require 15 to 30 seconds to complete. Check for traffic in both directions and signal a left turn before you begin. Check your blind area over your left shoulder before you start the turn. While moving slowly forward, steer rapidly all the way to the left. While still moving slowly forward, and when the front wheels are about 5 feet from the curb or pavement edge, slowly roll to a stop just before the right front tire reaches the curb or road edge. Then quickly check for traffic coming from the left and from the right. With your foot on the brake pedal, shift to reverse. Then back up slowly and steer sharply to the right. When your rear wheels are about 5 feet from the road edge or curb, look over your left shoulder and keep looking back while rolling slowly and stop just before the left rear tire touches the curb or the road edge. Check traffic, shift to drive, and steer into the proper lane, adjusting your speed as appropriate. On narrow roadways, it may be necessary to repeat steps 4 through 7 to complete this maneuver. Now we move on to parking. There are some common types of parking. There's curved parking, angled parking, perpendicular parking, and parallel parking. So what are some steps that are involved in parking safely and effectively at a curb? So let's talk about that. Curb parking and reference points. While parking at a curb is generally not as challenging as other types of parking, there is always the risk of stopping the vehicle too close or too far from the curb. So how do you park at a curb on the right? You need to project a sight line over the middle of your hood and match the middle point of your hood with the road edge. The vehicle is approximately 6 inches from the curb on the right at that point. And if you're confused about this, the videos that we watch at the end of the chapter will give you a better visual. Then we have parking at a curb on the left. Project a sight line over your hood, extending over the left front corner of your vehicle. Match that point of your hood with the road edge. The vehicle is approximately 6 inches from the curb on the left at that point. So we have entering an angled parking space. You need to monitor the vehicles to the left and to the right to be sure no one is backing out of a nearby space. Then signal your intentions by tapping your brake pedal and activating your turn signal. Then position your vehicle at least 5 feet from the rear of the adjacent parked vehicles. Then look straight down the painted line that marks the near side of the space that you plan to enter. Then steer sharply left or right as appropriate. Then move slowly forward into the space. Straighten your wheels to center the vehicle in the space. Then monitor the front and rear of your vehicle to make sure you do not strike vehicles parked to either side. Straighten the wheels, then move slowly forward, stopping just before the curb or the front of the parking space, then cancel the signal. Then we have leaving an angled parking space. You need to check carefully for pedestrians and vehicles. Then signal left or right as appropriate. Then shift to reverse, check traffic in all directions, and look over your shoulder in the direction that you intend to turn. Check both outside mirrors. Then slowly back out until you can see past the vehicle parked to your right or to your left. Then check again for traffic. When there is space enough for the front fender of your vehicle to clear the rear of the vehicle on the side opposite the direction that you will be turning, turn the steering wheel rapidly in the direction that you wish to turn. Continue backing into the travel lane and start to straighten the wheels. Then stop, shift to drive, straighten the wheels, and adjust your speed as appropriate, and then cancel your signal. Then we have perpendicular parking. Parking spaces are marked at 90-degree angles. Allow more room to maneuver than with angled parking. Position your vehicle at least 8 to 9 feet away from the rear of the other parked spaces. So how do you enter? this specific parking space. You need to monitor the vehicles to the left and to the right to be sure no one is backing out of a nearby space. Then signal your intentions. Check for nearby pedestrians. Then position your vehicle at least 8 to 9 feet from the rear of the parked vehicles on the side to which you will turn. When you can look down the near side of the vehicle parked in the space next to the one that you intend to occupy, start turning the steering wheel rapidly to enter that parking space. Move slowly forward and allow the wheels to straighten, centering the vehicle in the space. Then monitor the front and rear of the vehicle to make sure it does not strike vehicles parked to either side. As you straighten the wheels, move the vehicle slowly forward, stopping just before the curb or the front of the parking space. Then cancel your signal. Then we have parallel parking. Parallel parking is nothing more than a lane change in reverse. Be aware of two areas of your vehicle to aid in using as reference points. One is the center of your vehicle, and two is the rear edge of your vehicle. Then confirm that your intended parking space is at least 1.5 times as long as your vehicle. To park in a parallel spot, drivers should use the following procedure. Check traffic to the rear, then signal your intentions using your brake lights and your right turn signal. Then position your vehicle 2 to 3 feet from and parallel to the vehicle which is parked. Stop when the center point of your vehicle is in line with the center point of that parked vehicle. Then slowly back your vehicle, steering sharply to the right. Continue backing until the center point of your vehicle is in line with the rear of the parked vehicle. Continue backing slowly while straightening the wheels. Make quick glances forward to ensure the front wheels are straight. Continue backing until the right front corner of your vehicle is in line with the rear of the other vehicle. Looking to your rear, back up slowly, turning the steering wheel sharply to the left as far as it will go. Check your left side view mirror and stop in front of the vehicle parked behind you. Move slowly forward as you straighten your wheels and stop the vehicle when it's positioned in equal distance from vehicles to the front and to the rear of yours. Now we move on to parking on hills. When you park on a hill, take precautions to prevent your vehicle from rolling downhill. Always set your parking brake firmly and put your car in park. If you have a manual shift vehicle and are parking downhill, set your parking brake and leave your transmission in reverse. If you are parking uphill, leave your vehicle in a low gear. Then we have parking on a downgrade with a curb. Bring your vehicle to a position parallel to the curb. Move slowly forward and turn the steering wheel slightly away from the curb. Then move forward very slowly and turn the steering wheel rapidly toward the curb. Stop the vehicle when the front curbside tire touches the curb. Then we have parking on an upgrade with a curb. Position your vehicle parallel to the curb. Moving slowly forward about 3 feet, turn your wheels sharply away from the curb as far as they will go. Then stop. Allow your vehicle to roll backwards slowly until your front curbside tire is resting against the curb. Then we have parking on a grade without a curb. If there is no curb, the same rules apply whether you park up or downhill. Always position your vehicle with your wheels turned toward the edge of the pavement. If your vehicle should move, it will not roll into traffic. And just like that, we're done with chapter number 9. As usual, we'll now watch chapter 9 videos on AAA.